Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Zhang. I'm the founder and host of Undocumented History and online YouTube video podcast. Welcome to episode 12. Mayor Park is officially an AAPI history maker as he's the first AAPI mayor elected in the state of Georgia. However, what sparks me is his journey and his down-to-earth personality. At first, he wasn't even planning to run for mayor until some city council members recruited him and started raising money for him even before he officially decided to run. After that, he canvassed voters in honest door-to-door conversations in a grassroots manner. And when he finally won, he announced in a victory speech that he would be mayor for all in Brookhaven, especially those who didn't vote for him.
Brookhaven is one tonight. I look forward to working hard to be the best mayor that I can be for everyone in Brookhaven, especially those that did vote for me. Because as mayor, we represent everyone in Brookhaven.
In this episode, Mayor Park and I will discuss his journey to becoming mayor, his leadership inspiration, and his role as an AAPI history maker. Here is my conversation with him. Hi everyone, and welcome to Undocumented History, an online video podcast focused on educating others about Asian culture and history, while also amplifying Asian voices and stories. I'm Tiffany Zhang, your host, and today we have a very special guest, John Park, the mayor of Brookhaven and the first AAPI mayor elected in Georgia. Previously, he served as part of the city council. Mayor Park, thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to join me. Before we start, is there anything else that you want to add regarding to what you do and who you are?
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me here, and appreciate you taking the time to put the story out there.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess my first question would be, can you kind of lead us or talk about your journey to the government space and why you decided to switch from being a city council to mayor?
So 9 years ago, I ran for the city council, and at that time, I had really no interest in politics whatsoever. Enjoyed. I ran an amateur soccer club. I worked at Northrop Grumman, which is a government contractor working with disease surveillance for the CDC and other public health agencies. And really, Brookhaven is a new city. We became a city in 2012, and I actually was not in favor of becoming a city, so I wasn't particularly involved. And what happened was, the city was doing things that we didn't like, and my neighbors and I got together and decided that there was an open seat, and we decided to, it was more of a group effort. It was a grassroots effort by me and my neighbors to take office. And then once we took office, we focused on things that a city should do, like infrastructure and connectivity. And the big to do at that time was there was 30 acres of green space in my neighborhood that we really wanted to preserve and keep it green space. And so that's why I ran. And I actually was on the council for one partial term of 3 years, one full term of 4 years. Was halfway through my second term, second full term, when the previous mayor was term limited, so he couldn't serve anymore. And we felt like, as a council, the reason why we were successful is because we worked together and we had a good culture. And so I ran to basically maintain that culture and continue with the momentum that Brookhaven had in creating a new city. So that's the reason why I decided to run for mayor.
That's great that you kind of saw a problem in your community and you decided to become part of the solution. So my next question would be, there's not really any wrong answers here, but I'm curious to know what was your experience growing up as an Asian like? I was especially interested in this because of I was when I was researching, I saw this quote in the Georgia Asian Times saying that you never imagined yourself an awkward Asian American kid playing basketball would become the first API
Yeah.
mayor in Georgia. So I guess can you kind of explain what your experience was like?
So I would say that as growing up, I had three separate experiences. Okay, the first 2 years we lived in a very rural in Auburn, Alabama. Our house was, we had a rental house that was we basically lived in the woods, and it was kind of a culture shock and kind of a how do I say this? Uh, it's just all my surroundings. It was a complete shock, and so because in Gwangju, where I grew up in Korea, it was a pretty crowded, it was the fourth largest city in Korea. And when I was 6, I moved to Auburn, Alabama, where we would go days where we just wouldn't see anyone because there was really no one except maybe a couple of neighbors. Um, and aside from school, we mainly kept to ourselves within our family because there were no other Koreans, and I didn't have, I started, doing some things, but mostly it was just me and my brothers and my sister. So that was that. So that was interesting. So that wasn't, I watched a lot of TV and played a lot in the woods and things like that. And then we moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and we lived in a neighborhood that was, they say that wasn't as polite, I would say, and there was a lot. I encountered a lot of kind of, I pretty much heard every name that could be called, right? Lived there for a few years. And then once my dad became a minister, decided to become a minister, enrolled in the seminary in Decatur, Georgia, we moved to Decatur, Georgia. And that was interesting because that was kind of a tale of two cities in and of itself. We had the neighborhood around the seminary, which is fairly affluent. So I had, fairly affluent friends. But then the rest of the city, there's a lot of it, this is before Decatur became a chic place to live in Atlanta. It was basically inner city. So I had a set of friends that were kind of like, all ended up going to private school that we would hang out. But then I also had a set of friends, playing basketball at the park. So it was a very interesting, almost a dichotomy. And then it was a smaller high school. A lot of my more affluent friends went on to private school. So that kind of shifted, and then I ended up going to Emory. So that's kind of my childhood. I got exposed to a lot of different cultures and a lot of different classes of people, if that makes sense.
That's great to hear your experiences. And I guess this is like kind of pivoting back to like your current status as mayor of Brookhaven, but what were your thoughts leading up to this whole thing? Like, I guess, can you kind of walk us through your thoughts starting from like the sparks of wanting to run for mayor to like during your campaign to like right when they're about to announce the results? Like, could you kind of talk us through that?
So as of March last year, I had no intention of running for mayor whatsoever. I just had no interest. I wanted to serve out my term. I feel like I've largely accomplished most of what I wanted to accomplish, as far as development in our area, having balanced growth, preserving the green spaces, and starting the path of really setting an area that has really good livability for our citizens. But when it became clear that the other candidates that were running did not understand that and did not have that same vision. Basically, I was recruited. Because I was the longest standing, because I was kind of the senior, longest serving council member. The other council members really they, they put the screws to me, and they even started raising money for me before I even decided to run. So I ran, and then once there's some controversy in the city of Brookhaven. We just anytime you spend a lot of money and do something big, they're going to criticize you. I mean, that's just a fact of life. And so we, as a city, went from a new city, we started to become a more mature city, and we have our city center project. And so as a result, they started really attacking me. And there were 3 other candidates, and they just constantly attacked me because I was considered the establishment candidate, right? Even though I'm the minority, which is interesting, isn't it? And so we set about the campaign just focusing on the positive of the city, focus on our AAA bond rating, and that's when I like campaigns, because that's when I can really get out and people actually want to talk to me. A lot of times it's hard to get people to give you input because they're busy and they're not interested. But during a campaign, I only know how to do grassroots campaigning. That's all I know. And so I've knocked down probably 4,000 doors, and I think had about pretty close to 2,000 conversations at the door. I really got a sense of what the community was saying, and it was just nonstop campaigning. plus trying to maintain my day job. Fortunately, I also, I didn't have to also be in office because I resigned to run for mayor. In order to run, if you qualify, you can't be in office according to the Georgia Constitution, which I find kind of archaic actually. And after, and then we had the runoff, and the runoff was another month of just nonstop, and then attacks on both sides. I finally decided to hit back after all the negative campaigning, and of course, if you never hit anyone back, and they sometimes they get taken aback. It's like, oh, you're actually going to hit back. Whoa. And so I won with 59% in the runoff. And so, but as far as once I became mayor, once I was elected, and I was mayor-elect, the transition was pretty easy, because we're just going to continue doing what we've been doing. The people who've spoken, people said we want to continue the work that we're doing, and we're happy with the direction of Brookhaven. So I pretty much reappointed everyone, and most of my time has been. I was actually a little surprised by the level of interest by the Korean American and Asian American community, not only in Georgia but throughout the world, and throughout I've had media contacts from like DC and Korea and all that. So, and also everybody invites me to their year-end and beginning of year events, all the New Year celebrations and all the awards galas and things like that. So I've made a really big effort to be present and be available and represent the community beyond just Brookhaven. So that's what I've been spending my time doing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I feel like it really says something that like your friends all kind of like pushed you to vote and like invested money before you even like officially decided to vote. I feel like that says a lot about like your like genuine work as a city council member, and just like when you were describing your like grassroots organization thing and like actually having honest conversations, I also feel like that spoke to you, like spoke of you as a person a lot. So I think it's really inspiring, like all your grassroots work and stuff. And something that kind of struck me, what you said was like you've sparked a lot of interest in like the media and stuff, like since you've become mayor. And like the media is called, I've seen like some media outlets calling you as a history maker, as like you're the first AAPI mayor elected in Georgia. What do you think of that statement?
I mean, it's true. I am the first AAPI. I think. Well, here's the thing. One kind of dirty little secret in politics is that if you're an ethnic minority and you live in a district with a lot of your same affinity group, like if there's a lot of Koreans in your community, um, unless it's a majority, it can be actually difficult because yeah, you may get that 20-30%, but there's a lot of times there's a backlash against, oh my God, these people from outside of our community are coming in and taking over, and so it can actually be more difficult. That wasn't a problem for me because in Brookhaven, Brookhaven is 65% white. I think close to 20% Hispanic actually, and unfortunately, many of them don't vote. 12% African American, or only 7% Asian. And out of that 7%, I would estimate there's probably about 400 or 500 Koreans total. So the Asian vote was a non-factor in my election. So I think it speaks more to Brookhaven, the residents of Brookhaven, who didn't see a black, white, or Asian or Hispanic person. They saw someone that was involved in the community. It didn't. I'm sure some people had tendencies to be prejudiced, but most people just saw someone they could connect with and understood their problems and listened to them. And I think it speaks volumes about the people of Brookhaven. Brookhaven is a very progressive, forward-thinking community. We have a lot of professionals. We have a lot of it's a highly educated community, and I'm fortunate to be in a community where they're very they're more concerned about results than they are about, hey, is this guy someone well, actually would want to have a beer with me, I would hope. So
Yeah, that's great to hear. And my next question, I guess, would be like, I mean, okay, wait, sorry. Like going back to that, yeah, definitely. I think you definitely are a history maker. Like it is a fact that you are the first AAPI mayor in Georgia. And I think something that also makes it so, I guess, amazing and also like why the media is like kind of contacting you is because of like the Asian American like underrepresentation and leadership in government. And so yeah, I think it's really great. And also, I think your community is also really great. And my next kind of point that I wanted to talk about was I know like some people have like kind of a misconception of Asian Americans being unable to lead. So my next question would be like about your leadership, like as the elected mayor of a city prepared to lead a city of almost like 60K inhabitants, like how do you plan to lead Brookhaven?
Just continue what I've been doing. Set really the most important thing is setting the tone. Setting the direction of the city. Um, and also building consensus and getting kind of my biggest goal is to unify, to bring people together, to get everyone involved, because leading isn't about telling people what to do. Leading is about setting a vision, and I think the key is in order to have a vision, you have to understand your community, right? And I think maybe that's why people think that Asians can't lead because they don't understand the community. But once you do, things come more naturally as a result. And I think it's in order to be successful politically, any ethnic group that comes to the United States needs to get away from sometimes in order to protect ourselves we become insular, right? And the key is to get away from that and be more involved with the broader community in order to have the influence and in order to be able to accomplish things. But the good news is Koreans in Korean Americans in Atlanta uh, arrived a little later than other cities like California or in LA or Chicago or New York. And however, like the other cities, we're having more professionals, we're having more attorneys and large firms, we're having more professionals like doctors and accountants and all that, and also not just small businesses, but there's smaller businesses going to chains and larger businesses. And me being elected and other Korean politicians being elected is just a natural progression of that, yeah, accumulation of power and wealth for the community, which in turn will translates into politics later down the line. So I think I will not be I may be the first, but there will be many more to follow me.
Mhm. And is there anyone that you look for to leadership inspiration or someone that you just think is a great leader?
Oh, that's a well, that's a trick question because I've been very careful to be. It's a nonpartisan race, and I'm probably one of very few politicians uh, that 2 years ago when I was ran against a pretty far right candidate, even though it's nonpartisan, the Democratic Party put in resources towards my race. And then this election, when my opponent was kind of maybe a little more left than most people were comfortable with, the Republican Party came in and put in resources to my campaign. I mean, not directly to me, but they participated in my campaign as they can, and there was no coordination in either side. But um, I don't want to. How about this? I'll just give you two. Okay, I'll give you two. Uh, I work in public health. So I write software and I do work with the CDC and other and public health agencies. And a lot of people don't know this, but George W. Bush was a leader in preparing for the next pandemic. We would have been a lot worse off if not for his actions in making sure that we had the potential of a strategic, reserve of equipment for dealing with pandemics. Um, and it could have been a lot worse. And so that forward thinking and that vision and leadership on that aspect, uh, I really have a lot of. He didn't have to do that. He didn't do it just because it made him popular. Right? He did it because he knew it had to be done. So, so I would say him, and then growing up, I was a huge Jimmy Carter fan. Jimmy Carter, um, you know, did things, for even he was big on human rights. He did things because it was the right thing. He didn't care as much about projecting power. He cared more about making lives better for people throughout the world. Some Americans didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that we gave away the Panama Canal, basically. Um, but as a result of his leadership, I think America became, in reality, in her soul, a better country. So those are the two people that I kind of look up to. And historically, James K. Polk you might guess that before I went to business school, I was a history major. James K. Polk is another person who I admire for doing everything he wanted to do in 4 years and saying, okay, I'm done. I've accomplished everything. I don't need to do this, for power or whatever. He just had a job to do and did it. And I tried to do that, but apparently I couldn't. So
Yeah, well, I guess you still had things to do as mayor and just like push out your city better. But I guess my next kind of question would be, even though, like as you said, Brookhaven is more like of a progressive community, and they probably didn't see it as like a Y or like API like mayor leading their city. I know some other cities might see it that way, but how will you kind of like, I guess, like break down that stereotype to the people who are looking at you as someone who is like unaffected to leave because of your race?
uh, I think by just proving them wrong, and just being having Brookhaven continue to be successful. And a lot of these things that happen in our community, building a greenway that goes through the poorest neighborhood along Beeford Highway, poorest precinct, lowest income precinct. That was very intentional. And actually accomplishing these things when other jurisdictions couldn't do it, and finding the innovative funding sources and bringing all those resources to bear to build things. Those things don't happen by accident. I think people that understand how these things happen see that it happens because of not only the leadership of that one person, but that one person who brings others together to make it happen. And I've been doing that in the council, and I plan on continuing to do that as mayor. And I think as people see that, it's one impression at a time, right? It's one impression at a time. And if those people that may judge have this preconceived notion, and they see things and they're proven wrong again and again and again, they at the very least will shut them up. How about that? Right? They may not change their mind, but they'll stop spouting off about it.
Mhm. Yeah, it takes many history makers. And I know you talked about like building like something, sorry, what was it? Like building something through the poorest neighborhood.
So have you heard of the Atlanta Beltline?
Hmm.
It's just basically extending the Atlanta Beltline uh, through Brookhaven, through the rest of the northeast quarter of Atlanta, the metro Atlanta area. So it's basically an extension of the Brookhaven Beltline, or the Atlanta Beltline.
Hmm. And I guess, yeah, I know you talked about that, but do you have any other like plans as mayor?
So I'm gonna. It's kind of boring. Um, I,
No,
I
feel free
want.
to share.
My goal. So one thing that happened was we live in before we became a city, we were managed by the county government. The county government, even the county commissioner that represents us will agree that our infrastructure was neglected. So um, really, government is about the three P's, paving, police, and planning, right? And also parks. Um, so those are the things that I'm going to focus on. So, infrastructure, as far as like, because of all the new construction of new homes, we have flooding problems because our infrastructure can handle it. We have all these pipes and culverts that are collapsing, um, and really just get ahead of that. So that's one thing I want to accomplish. The other thing is, I want everyone in the city of Brookhaven, within a 10-minute walk, to be able to go to a quiet park or green space. And to me, that's a public health issue, right? if you don't have something, a quiet place you can go and relax, and if everything around you is concrete, um, you're just not going to be as healthy. So that's another goal is to, we've acquired 100 plus acres of green space. We have 44% more since we became a city. Um, but we're going to continue until every gap in Brookhaven is filled of available green spaces. Um, and really, and that connectivity, right? Eventually, what's going to happen is we could build nothing in the city of Brookhaven, and traffic will increase by 2 to 3% every year. That's just a reality. I was joking with one of our fellow mayors in the exurbs of Atlanta, kind of far away, and said, "Hey, if you're Battery, please stop. Please to asking people to stop cutting through our neighborhoods in Brookhaven." And so it's up to us to have multimodal transportation, have a better public transportation as well as bike and pedestrian facilities, and all this is tied to public health and just more livable neighborhoods, and those are the initiatives that I plan on focusing on.
hmm I look forward to, I guess, like seeing a better Brookhaven, and I really that kind of reminded me of of a quote that you said. Like, I love how your goals are also inclusive, but a quote that you said was like, "I'll be mayor for all of Brookhaven, especially those who didn't vote for me." And I just love how like your goals are so like your goals as mayor are so like inclusive of everyone. Like, it's like something that everyone can enjoy, regardless of like their beliefs or like their like status. You know what I mean? So that's something
Right.
really great to hear.
Everyone has my cell number. They can call me, and they can bug me about whatever they want to. I mean, that's just that's just always how I've operated. And because I'm their mayor, I'm their servant. So hopefully, hopefully my goal is to accomplish everything I want to accomplish, and they can forget about me because the city runs so well and everything's great.
Okay, so thank you so much to Mayor Park for joining me on this interview. It's such a pleasure to have you today. And
No
I
problem.
guess like, do you have any ending comments that you want to say?
Uh, it's not as hard as it looks. That's what I'll say. If this is something that interests you, um, you know, uh, seek those that do it and uh, ask for input and ask for. You'd be surprised how people my age are willing to mentor younger people and take time to kind of give them insight. So seek it out if you're interested in doing this, and I guess just keep plugging along. Let's all live the American dream.
Of course. And so yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone watching at home, and I will see everyone next time. Thank you, Mayor Park again. And yeah, bye.